to I Speak African, the podcast where we discuss everything from culture, identity, history, and the African experience wherever you are in the world. Today we're diving into the topic that has been making waves across social media, the ongoing feud between African Americans, specifically identifying as FBAs and African immigrants living in the US. Now, I'm going to be honest, this feud caught me off guard. I didn't even know what was happening. I don't think it's happening in real life. I asked, friends, Nigerian friends, and I'll be like, hey, you heard about this? And they'll be like, no, I just heard about it on social media, TikTok. But as far as real life, I don't even think this is going to go in real life. But from what I can gather, what started it was the problem that many Black Americans, not even many, but I'll say a few, like a minority of Black Americans have, which is that Essence was bought by a Liberian-American man. And what I have to say to that is that people have to understand, although Essence was founded by 4 Black men, it was eventually bought by Time Warner, which is owned by a white man. So where is the outcry when Essence was owned by a white man for more than a decade? There was no outcry. But now that it's owned by a Liberian-American and run by a Kenyan-American, now there's an issue. If people had an issue, they should have contacted we have billionaires. We have Michael Jordan, we have Oprah Winfrey, we have LeBron James, we have Jay-Z and Beyonce, we have Robert Smith, and then we have a whole bunch of multi-millionaires. Any of them could have bought Essence. They could have put their money together and bought Essence, but none of them did. Because although it's a staple in the Black American community, people don't care about Essence anymore. Like, yeah, people go to Essence Fest every year, but people don't care about it that much anymore. And, I understand, but it's at the end of the day, it's a business. People can buy businesses if you bid and you have the money to purchase. Yeah, that's how businesses work. You can't get mad at somebody for buying a business, and especially not why is it that the frustration or anger is being targeted to the African community? They didn't buy Essence. This Liberian-American guy bought Essence, and believe me, he is not caring about all this stuff. He isn't, nor is the CEO. She ain't caring about none of it. But let me start by unpacking what the definition of FBA is. So FBA stands for Foundational Black Americans, and the term gained traction in the 2019 and has grown more popular recently. Ryan Coogler is a prime example of somebody who considers himself or calls himself FBA. He actually said it in a interview with Democracy Now! Ryan Coogler, if you don't know who he is the director of Black Panther 1 and 2, Creed, and Fruitvale Station. And he came on this interview. He was like, yeah, I identify as a FBA, a Foundational Black American. And, I didn't see anything wrong with that, because if you look at the historical context, Black Americans built this country. So if you're calling yourself a foundational, the word foundation means like the root, and you're calling yourself Black, that's what you are, and you're American. The country we live in today, or the country that was founded, is America. So if Ryan Coogler and other people want to call themselves FBAs, that's their choice. I never agreed with the term African American, and the term was coined in 1988 when Jesse Jackson ran for president. And during a conference, he said this, and this is a quote: "It puts us in our proper historical context. Every ethnic group in this country has a reference to some land base, some historical culture base. African Americans have hit that level of maturity." Now, I do not agree with that. I see what he's saying, but I don't agree with it, because Jesse Jackson is not the spokesperson for Black people. But also, if that's what he wants to say, white people came from Europe, they came from England, they came from France and Germany, but they don't call themselves European American. No, they're just American. I think that Black people should just be called American, because Black people have been here for as long as white people. Not only have Black people have been here as long as white people, they built this country during slavery and post-slavery. So they should be allowed to be called American. But since Black people have been labeled as African American, and a lot of black people now are saying they want to be called FBAs. I think that when the next census comes out, that should, if it gets enough votes, I don't know how the census works or how, you change it, but if it gets enough votes, I think it's appropriate for people to be allowed to check the box FBA, and it should say Foundational Black American, because that's exactly what they are, But I wanted to discuss something that I wasn't even, I just found out about. I've heard some rumors. I didn't know how true it was until I did my own research. And what I stumbled across was actually pretty shocking, which is that human trafficking is going on in these African-owned braiding shops or these African-owned salons. And yeah, I said human trafficking. And this is not conspiracy or some made-up story. These are actually real cases. It's been documented by federal investigations, and there are also court records too. So many of these women are underage, like 14, 15, and they're being forced to work under brutal conditions. They're lied to and told under false pretense that they're going to come here and have a better life. So they come, and when they get here, it's pretty much working like a sweatshop. They get here, they work in these crazy conditions or these brutal conditions. They have no freedom. They don't get proper pay. It's been estimated they get paid $2 a day. And this is America, and they have no protection. And the worst part of it is that it's Africans doing it to Africans. So it's Africans who have come here to try to make a better life. And then when these young African women or girls try to do it too, they're like, no, we're going to make you a modern day slave, which is, it's crazy, because whenever I would go on these spaces on TikTok, you're hearing people say, oh, Africans, we're honorable people, and we have so much respect for each other and for our families, and Black Americans don't have any respect. And it's stop acting like the continent of Africa, everyone's some big happy family, because even within a country, let's take Nigeria, people don't even like each other. And we don't even have to go outside of tribes. We can talk about just in general, people don't like each other. And then we can go within the tribe. Not every Yoruba gets along. Yorubas often scam Yorubas. Igbos often scam Igbos, and so forth and so forth. And houses scam houses. So let's stop this narrative that all Africans love each other and all Africans are, just here just to make it in America. Yeah, you're making it in America, but be realistic and be honest and state that you don't like each other. Now, I'm going to show you a video of a woman who is telling us how the salon that she used to go to get her hair done, it got raided by the FBI.
African braiding shop in my town got raided because apparently there was a man who was bringing over all these young girls. So it was basically trafficking. He was bringing over all these young girls and had them working in the braiding shop, and they weren't getting paid any money. And I remember I used to go in there and get my hair braided, and the guy would come in while the girls were braided and collect all the money and then just leave. And I would see him doing that all the time, and they were basically being trafficked, and they had the shop, but they weren't paying them girls who were actually doing all the work. They weren't getting any money. And it was a big deal. They got raided and shut down. So,
There have been reports in states like Texas, Georgia, and New Jersey where African girls as young as 14 and 15 have been forced into, this modern day slavery, where they are forced to work 12 to 16 hours a day. They're paid little to nothing in wages. They live in a dirty, cramped apartment owned by the salon, and they're threatened with deportation or violence if they try to escape, even as far as they have been stripped of their passports so they can't leave. Just take a second to think about that. And I've been hearing all over the internet where people talk about Black Americans and say they're lazy, uneducated, ungrateful, they have no respect, they have no culture, all these things. But what is this? What is it that we're seeing? Is this part of African culture? It's not. You know, you can't just talk about the good that your people are doing and not talk about the bad, because no one is perfect. And this is the main issue. There's selective criticism. You have people who come on and be like, oh no, we as Africans, or we respect our parents, we respect our families, we don't do any wrong. But then when things like this come out, they say, oh, those are just the bad ones. It's always just the bad ones. You know, people really have to look in the mirror and look at their own communities and want to do better, because this is akin to modern day slavery. Now, there is a clip of an Asian guy. I don't know what his ethnicity is. I don't know if he is a Chinese, Vietnamese, or Korean. I don't know what he is, but he is speaking about how stupid and hypocritical these boycotts are.
I'm sorry, if black people all over the world are to be really and truly liberated, okay, y'all have to stop this beef with each other. Y'all have to stop this self-hate and really come together as a people, okay? Because everybody's against you. Everybody's against black people all over the world, no matter what part of the world you come from, no matter what part of the world you're born in, okay? Black Americans, why don't you boycott all these Asian businesses that have done you no good but exploit off of you and take your money? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to boycott African businesses when you should very much be patronizing them, okay? And treating them as your own, as black people, okay? You're not going to do that. You're not going to boycott all these Asian, Arab, Indian businesses in your communities exploiting off of you, but you're going to boycott your very own blood. You're going to boycott your very own family, your very own lineage. I just don't understand, okay? Now, for those of you that want to continue believing whatever the fuck you want to believe, go ahead and end up getting destroyed for the lack of knowledge, okay? But I'm going to continue to say, as well as many other people, if you all are to be really and truly liberated, okay, no matter what part of the world you're from, you need to come together. Black people all over the world need to come together as black people and unite, okay, that against all these forces that's been oppressing y'all. That's the only way, and that is the only time y'all will really and truly be liberated and free, okay, and decolonized, okay. Now, I'm going to say this again, I am not black, okay, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of scrutiny and hate in the comment sections with people telling me that I am not black, so I am not in the place to talk about black issues. But I'm still going to come over here and give y'all my spiel and give y'all my opinions and everything that I've been noticing around the world, okay, because this is just rubbish that needs to stop, okay. And I really and truly would like to see Africans globally, okay, globally, not just on the continent, globally. I would really and truly love to see y'all united and really and truly completely liberated, okay? So with that said, I hope that y'all have a nice day and peace.
He makes a strong point. Why are there no boycotts against Chinese restaurants and beauty supply stores that profit off the black communities, especially when some of these businesses have shown blatant disrespect? Meanwhile, across the continent of Africa, in countries like Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the Chinese presence is massive. It's heavy. They're building infrastructure, and they're building the infrastructure and also the machines only in Mandarin. So if you don't speak Mandarin, you can't. If you don't read Mandarin, you can't operate these machines. Therefore, the people and the government is always going to be reliant on the Chinese workers, and they exploit the African workers, but no one says anything about them. There's no boycotts. There are even reported cases of abuse and exploitations of African workers, but still no real backlash. Why is that this particular feud between the FBAs and African immigrants is so heated? It doesn't make any sense. Let's be real. Yes, there are people online identifying as FBAs who have been saying disrespectful things about Africans, but these insults are not oppression. Name calling didn't colonize Africa. Name calling didn't destabilize our economies or provoke tribal wars. And for African immigrants upset about the rise of FBA identity, let's be honest, many first-generation Africans born in the U.S. still strongly identify with their parents' nationalities. They'll say they're Nigerian, they're Ethiopian, they're Eritrean, not Black American or not even African American. They're like, I'm Ethiopian, I'm not, I'm not Black, I'm Ethiopian, I'm not Black, I'm Eritrean, So why is it that when they delineate, it's okay, but when Black Americans delineate, there's an issue? African immigrants sometimes arrive in the U.S. with harmful stereotypes about Black Americans, saying that they are lazy, criminal, uneducated, which is all being fed by Western media. Some Black Americans feel that Africans look down on their history and contribution. Many believe that African and Caribbean immigrants disproportionately benefit from affirmative action policies meant to redress history. Now, as somebody who's been living here their whole entire life, I can say it's true. A lot of Africans do look down at Black Americans. In fact, they'll say it. I remember when I was in college, like I would hear Nigerians, mostly Nigerians, but some other Africans saying, "Yeah, this is why I don't like Black Americans." I remember one specifically, a story about an Igbo girl saying, "I don't like African Americans. My mother doesn't like African Americans, and this is why. When we first moved to America, an African American robbed her of, I think, like $800. And so therefore the whole entire ethnic group is demonized because of the action of one person." But no, that only happens for Black people. We only do that to each other. And it goes to show you this, how divided we are. Now let's talk about this let's talk about this African booty scratcher narrative that keeps going. Like I said earlier, I haven't heard that since I was a kid. I've entered several online spaces where African immigrants claim trauma from being teased that the phrase, African booty scratcher was called to them, was said to them so much that they didn't want to go to school, all these other things. And I asked, did every African child experience this exact same bullying? And they said, and if so, what was done by the entire Black American population? One Congolese woman, I was speaking to her, I think she's Congolese American, she made claim that kids have taken their own lives, they've underlived themselves just because they were called African booty scratcher. But it's like, where's the evidence? There's no local reports, no tweets, nothing about this. And I'm thinking, like, that's the problem. People are just lying on each other just to try to, further their narrative that we're innocent. This other group is the perpetrator. And within that same discussion, I asked a Yoruba guy, and I was like, "Hey, you don't have to answer this question. You can answer if you want." I said, "But have you, your friends or your family members ever called a Black American akata?" And if you don't know the term akata, it's a slur to use against Black Americans. And he admitted it. He was like, "Yeah, we used it." And I said, "Why?" And his excuse was, "Oh, because they called us African booty scratchers." And then he gave a whole story about how his mother, it's always the same story. My mother got robbed, or my mother got beat up, my sister got beat up. That's exactly what he said. His mother got robbed and his sister got beat up. And I was like, okay. So, let's not pretend that Africa is some type of continent that is perfect and it's a utopia and everyone's unified. Nigerians sometimes won't even marry outside their own ethnic group, let alone, sometimes they won't marry somebody from a different village. And, in fact, some places, Igbo parents won't allow their children to marry Igbos from other villages. It's very common. And so, like I said, I've been in a lot of these spaces. I was one time in this Eritrean group, and while I was speaking about Eritrea, they were screaming at me, cussing at me. But then I went back to that same Eritrean group, later on, and they were screaming and cussing at each other, and they're all Eritreans. So it goes to show you that there's this African solidarity stuff. It's just it's made up, And let's not forget the backlash of there's a guy a Igbo guy in Ghana right now that they're calling him the Igbo king. They want him to leave. They want him to leave, even though he bought, the 58 acres of land. He bought it legally. He didn't do anything. They want him to leave because they don't like the fact that a non-Ghanaian is buying Ghanaian land and he's making a village to bring non-Ghanaian people there, even though this guy is married to a Ghanaian woman and the child is a Ghanaian citizen, but the Ghanaians don't want him there. They don't, yeah, but and like I said, this is an issue that is from both sides. There's hypocrisy from all sides. Let's be honest, some FBAs, they talk a lot of nonsense. They make claims like Africans are stealing our jobs. What jobs are they actually stealing? Please tell me. Like what jobs are these? Because when Africans come here, they're either working in healthcare, and it's not like high, like doctors or nurses or like higher level nurses, like nurse practitioner. No, it's like CNA, some kind of maybe a tech or a phlebotomist. So what jobs are they stealing? And then the older immigrants who are more established, yes, they're in healthcare, they're physicians, and they're in tech, and they're in law, they're lawyers, and CPAs and stuff. But again, jobs like that you can't quote unquote steal. Actually, no job can actually be stolen. If you have an issue with a job, you got to take that up with the owner of that company. That's the real person who is stealing your job, because businesses are going to pay. If a business can make profit and save money, that's what they're going to do. So this idea that they're stealing your jobs is just false. And now also it's like people saying, Africans are being underpaid, so that's why they're taking our jobs. And it's like, no, that's not happening. And as I said before, no one's trying to boycott the Asian-owned businesses that have shown up in our communities or displayed blatant racism. Why is that? And I believe that it's because many people are afraid to confront the real power. It's easier to attack somebody that looks like you. The same mentality exists in South Africa, where black South Africans often attack black African foreigners, but not the Europeans who, created apartheid, who made it so that they couldn't even integrate into society and go to school. But these black foreigners are the issues. I'm going to play you a video of this South African woman just screaming and just being extremely racist about how much she hates black foreigners.
South African, I hate foreigner. I hate Krikamba. I hate Kwara. I hate Zai. I don't like foreigner. Foreigner must go to their country. I hate foreigners. I am xenophobic. I hate, again, I hate times and times. I don't know how many times. I hate foreigners. I am xenophobic. I don't like foreigner because foreigners, I don't have a child because of foreigner. Ramaphosa, take these foreigners to their country.
Because it ties directly into the ongoing tension between black Americans and African immigrants, especially when it comes to the issue of loyalty, identity, and exploitation. So if you don't know, the McCloy family they're like a biracial social media family that rose to fame throughout their viral videos of their two little twin biracial daughters, Ava and Alexis. The family brand is like cute twins, biracial identity, and wholesome content, which proven to be a gold mine. They blew up they gained viral exposure on YouTube, and they've even been on talk shows and landed some sponsor deals with some brands. So break it down. The mother is a Nigerian-American woman named Ami. They have a stepfather. He's not their father. He's not the father of the twins. He's the father of the little son. His name is Justin. He's white. We have the two twins, who I just named, Ava and Alexis, and whose biological father is a guy called Jeff Pesca, who reportedly abandoned Ami while she was pregnant with the twins. And Ami speaks about that. She tells how the guy was abusive and toxic. But he has his own story. He says that he wasn't abusive and toxic. He tried to come back and she was like, no. And then after, while she was pregnant, she met Justin. And then they have a little son now. So there's a video where Ami is speaking to her now husband, Justin. And she's like, well, I appreciate my culture as Nigerian because the culture honors family, education, and respect, unlike Black American families. So here's the video.
Let's put it this way. We were raised in a certain culture that a lot of African Americans just don't have. You know, and I feel like I'm tiptoeing. Guys, don't be offended. I'm very proud of having a culture that has had standards that taught me certain values. It's a certain culture that just breeds a level of respect for elders, a respect for tradition, a respect for yourself, you know, just certain things that, and I speak generally, that, you know.
Like too often from Africans who immigrate to America, like where do you get this notion that Black Americans don't believe in family values, don't believe in respect? Like where are you guys getting that from? Go to any Black American family. There not only is there much respect, you can't call a Black elder by their first name. You have to call them miss or auntie or whatever. You can't. So this idea that there's no respect in the Black American family, I don't know where it comes from. All I know is that a lot of Black Americans, I mean a lot of Africans, see this garbage from reality TV show like T.I. or Love and Hip Hop, you know, which are not accurate portrayals of the average Black American family, and they just like, okay, yeah, that's the truth, that's how they all behave, you know, which is not only very negative, but when it happens the other way around, or when it happens with white people, there's, you know, that same sentiment isn't shared. Like, look at the Kardashians. Sure, they might be billionaires, but they're trashy. And then look at that show that was on, Honey Boo Boo. Look how they behaved. But you don't hear Africans being like, oh, white people have no culture. They don't have any respect. They don't say any of that stuff, you know. But back to the McClures. This is where the controversy begins. So years ago, some old tweets and videos came up, or they resurfaced, of Justin making racist and deeply offensive stereotypical jokes about Black Americans, specifically calling Black American women and mocking their names. He mocked Black American women by saying they have names like Chandelier, Lasagna, Constellation, and Walgreens. And then he also made similar jokes about Hispanic men too. His excuse was that he was a comedian or trying out his material, and then he used the twins' Twitter account, and it was an accident, you know. But there was also a time where he came out, and I believe he said the N-word, and then he was the mother was crying, and there was a whole like fake PR video of him talking to the two twins and saying how he said a very bad word and all this stuff. Now let's fast forward to present day. This white man got rich. He's a millionaire now. He got rich off the backs of these two biracial, or if you want to call them black girls, and their likeness. That's how he's rich. But now he's trying to control, you know, their money and limit what they can you know, spend. He even said it. He said that there's a video where he says, and I'm gonna post it, but he's saying like, no child of mine deserves to have millions of dollars as like an 18-year-old, even though that's a legal adult. But he can have all the money, you know. And there's in the video, the wife Ami is looking at him sideways, and I get it, because she's probably thinking, you didn't make this money, my kids made this money, me and my kids make this money. People don't watch the McClures for Justin, they watch it for the twins, and they watch it for Ami. But you know, let me be clear, she's talking about how she comes from a culture that, you know, reveres respect, But she married two trashy men. The first one wasn't even man enough to stay with her. The second one is saying racist things about her black people. Racist things about black people. And she's talking about respect. And now he even wants to control the vast sum of wealth, or the vast wealth that they made. He didn't make any of that, even though he quit his job. And that's what he did. Once he found out that they were making money, he quit his job. You know, and he because he's making more money doing this than whatever he was doing before. You know, and had they had a black stepfather, he wouldn't have said that. And had he said that, he would have been canceled, and he would have been dragged all over the internet. But because he's white, Ami's gonna defend him, and she's still defending him, even after he was like, nope, they're not having any money. And this is the exact reason why. You know, let me play this video.
Aside money for our kids. I have a certain amount that I think they should have by the time that they're 18 years old, so they can buy a house, not so they can waste it buying Lamborghini or purses, but that's around $500,000. That should be enough. I'm not a fan of giving a child millions of dollars.
FBAs feel so deeply betrayed by many or some African immigrants, because while Ami was quick to excuse racism from a white man, because it was profitable, many of these same African immigrants will turn and call FBAs lazy, uncultured, as if the sacrifice and trauma of generations doesn't matter. And there's, you know, so much hypocrisy, because this same culture that Africans act like they hate, they are copying. Like, I love Burna Boy. I like him. But look at Burna Boy. Look how Burna Boy is tatted up. Look at Wizkid. Look at all these. You know, you can go to any Afrobeat artist. Well, not any, but many. And even the South African I'm a piano artist. Look at them. They're copying Black America. Like, that's what they're copying. And that's what they're making money off of. But then you hear, and I'm not talking about Burna Boy, but you hear Africans like Ami and other Africans who live here in America talk about Black Americans have no culture. Well, because you're copying it, or because you stole it, you know. And the same man, you know, that they made rich is now deciding that in the future the twins can't have the money that they made. And I wouldn't be surprised in the future if the twins take legal action, because that's ridiculous. Like, this man did nothing. You guys, these people have like on both channels, they have like 4-point-something million subscribers. And you can go and they're making like per month like $500,000, so 500,000. So he's saying that they can only have 1 month's earnings, but he can keep all the millions after doing nothing. He didn't do anything. All he bought was like a camera and the equipment to make everything look professional, but he's not doing anything. And now he drives a Mercedes. But he's saying that they can only have a fraction of what is owed to them, what they created, and it's it's about a pattern of valuing, the issue is that whiteness is valued so much, and the proximity to whiteness over the solidarity with Black Americans. And that's a huge part of this frustration, because I've seen so many Africans who are so anti-Black American, but so like pro-white American, or just pro-white. And it's like they don't see the destruction that they're doing, and when you try to tell them, they're like, shut up. But finally, I want to post this video of this Liberian nurse who was on TikTok, and I'm sure many people have seen this video. She's a healthcare worker, and she's saying how if Black Americans want to continue this boycott, Africans in the healthcare system and Africans and other industries should also boycott Black Americans.
all of us, let call out one day from work. All of us across the United States. All immigrants call out from work. Yes. If they want to go to war, let's see what they can prove. And also, all immigrants, like your businesses from all Black Americans. Simple as that. Don't let them go into your grocery store. Don't let them go into your restaurant. Don't let them go into your salon. You want to go to war? We will. And also, we can ask all our African doctors, boycott all Black American
clear.
treatment.
What this Liberian woman is saying is not only unethical, it's also illegal. It violates EMTALA, and EMTALA stands for the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. And it's also a civil rights violation. She could lose her license and face prison time, which she should, because it's just ridiculous. Like, what are you going to see a Black person who doesn't look African, or your stereotypical West African, and say, "Hell, you're a Black American, I'm not going to give you health care"? That's stupid. It doesn't make any sense, And the reason why she's saying such things is because that happens in Liberia, that happens in Nigeria, Ghana. It happens on the continent. Because unlike in America, healthcare is not socialized. So in America, when you get sick, you can go to the hospital regardless. Yes, they will bill you, and you might become, you might have to file for bankruptcy. But you'll get the healthcare. You'll get whatever's wrong with you. You'll be healed, or they'll take care of you, but they'll bill you. Whereas on the continent, they can just deny you and be like, you don't have the money, because you have to pay up front. And then if you don't have the money, they'll deny you. They don't care. And even if you do have the money, sometimes depending on where it is, they'll kick you out. Like there was a video of I saw a South African video of three South African women ganging up on a woman who they said was from Zimbabwe, and she was pregnant, and they were like, "Go back to Zimbabwe." Like, she got treated in the clinic. She came out. The South African women are like, "You're from Zimbabwe? How'd you get here? How'd you pay for it? Go back to your country. Go back to your country." Yeah. So that happens on the continent, but it doesn't happen here. And because she is saying that without having, the necessary knowledge of healthcare law, she's just talking as if she's back in Liberia. This woman doesn't deserve to be a healthcare provider. She should lose her license and her job. There was a woman in Ohio who was a nurse practitioner who was West African. She was Fulani. I don't know exactly where she was from, maybe Senegal or Gambia or even Guinea. But she was saying how she was calling a Black family the N-word, calling them slaves and telling them they're slaves and they're N-word. And this went viral. She eventually lost her job, and she deactivated her own license. And this needs to happen to this woman too, because what she's proposing is against the law, and it's also very dangerous. But as I said online, I'll say it here, this is the dumbest feud ever. This feud is rooted in trauma, ego, and misinformation. And if being teased as a child hurt you so deeply, you need to seek professional help. Go get a therapist. We got ignorant people on both sides. But despite the noise, we're stronger together than divided, which is very true. Like, Black unity can't just be a hashtag. It also needs to be real. And, this, like I said, I didn't hear anything about this in real life. I hear about social media. Social media is not real life. But in real life, I don't know anyone that's doing this stupid boycott. But thank you again for tuning into another episode of I Speak African. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any thoughts or topics for future episodes, you can email me at ispeakafrican12@gmail.com. And remember, you can stream these episodes on Spotify. Until next time, stay informed and blessed.